You were talking a little bit earlier about the technology and trying to find facilities. You mentioned the beautiful baseball field in town, but go into a little bit more deep detail about the equipment that you rely upon, the technology that you're implementing, and what you're hoping to plan, what you're planning out for the future as far as implementations.
Sure. So yeah, like you said, our practice field is absolutely incredible. In terms of the way our campus is situated, our field isn't located directly on site. It's about 5 minutes away. So it's, one of the accommodations that we make being a small school is that we drive a couple minutes to our facility. Our indoor facility, I was just there to take a look at it. It's incredible. We'll be able to do everything that we need from an indoor perspective. Long toss we'll be able to do. We'll be able to run full infield. There's drop-down cages. We'll be able to throw live indoors pre-season, so we can build up guys' arms the right way. Facing live competition versus just throwing pens without hitters. It's a different intensity level. So from an equipment and technology perspective, all of our training is done in a way to objectively measure progress through player development. So video is definitely going to be a big component of what we do. We use weighted batch, driveline type program. We try to cover all of our bases and provide the student athlete for a well-rounded plan. And, because of the coaching staff that we have, technology is definitely something that we're going to lean on.
Now, I'm looking at this question. We can break it down to daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, but as far as practices and training regiments and all the lifting and film schedules, as an incoming player, walk me through what my day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month is going to look like in your program.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, no matter what, there's always going to be a team component to, the baseball training that we do. And in addition to that, a lot of what we do is also individualized. So we try to cover our bases that way. The basis for how we operate is more what you would see from a player development company like Driveline versus a prototypical junior college baseball team. We've been able to balance workload and balance practice schedules, lifting schedules to where, in the fall when we're playing games against four-year schools to get better with experience and live reps, at the same time, we're going to be pushing the envelope from an arm standpoint, from a strength and conditioning standpoint, making sure that we're making our kids as athletic as possible. So every practice is going to have a structure with daily individual skill development. It's all going to be position specific, right? It's going to be tailored to each guy's strength and weaknesses. The details matter, right? So at the end of the day, we could be great at developing these tools, and we're obviously very confident at it. And, we have good athletes on our team, right? We have talent, but you have to be able to play the game the right way. Okay. And you have to be able to execute. And the most talented team in baseball doesn't always win. So, we've got to try to combine this positivity and this confidence that we have, because we do have talent. We need to combine it with a blue collar work ethic that can match, other more established programs that we're going to be competing against. So we've got strength and conditioning in the fall for 3 days a week. So while we're practicing and playing games, in the afternoon, you're going to be working with a certified strength and conditioning coach. Before you get into anything like practice and strength and conditioning, you're going to have classes in the morning. Generally speaking, those wrap up by the afternoon, and then the rest of that day can be used for baseball. We do have mandatory study tables on Wednesday, which I think is a must, especially at the junior college level. We've got free tutoring here, so it's going to come down to time management for a lot of our guys, okay? A lot of our guys have been, going to high school, right, over the last 4 years, and it's different. You go to class every day, okay, and your structure is regimented that way. In college, you have a class 1 day a week, okay, and you might have a test that next week. So what are you going to do with this free time that you have? And, keep in mind, you're going to be tired, right, because you're lifting all the time. You're training. You're on a baseball field. You're traveling to games. You're coming back and forth. It's a big-time commitment, but, for the right guys, it's definitely worth it.
All right, Coach, you got an impressive staff, and I think you need to take some time to talk about their specialties, who they are, and then go into a little bit about your offensive, defensive, and pitching philosophies that you all share.
Okay. Yeah, we are very fortunate, and like I said, we have 2 assistant coaches who are full-time associates at the college. It's something I think is pretty incredible. And, at our level, the junior college level, you're lucky if you've got a head coach that's full-time, right? So these guys started out as volunteers. The first guy I'll talk about is Jake Plata. Coach Jake was a guy that dominated Northeast Ohio baseball when I was a kid. We're the same age. He played Division I baseball at Akron. And, simply put, this guy dropped bombs back in the day, and he still drops bombs, okay? So he's one of this guy that plays in adult league baseball. And, if somebody asked me to evaluate where his talent is right now as a 32-year-old guy, I'd say he's probably a single A, or high A minor league baseball player right now. So Jake brings an interesting dynamic to the program, and he fills the gaps to where, maybe I lack, right? Or maybe some of my weaknesses are. And, it just goes to say that that's our philosophy here, is that it's a very flat communication structure. If you've got a good idea, okay, if you want to make an impact on my baseball team, you're going to have a voice and you're going to have an opportunity to do that. So it's something that Jake has absolutely taken by the horns and just ran with it, okay? He did have a little bit of college coaching experience under his belt last year at the Division III level at a really high academic institution and a school that had a lot of success on the baseball field too. So he just brings, a dynamic of really high standards, and he has a D1 mentality. And if you talk to Division I people, you're going to notice that they're a little bit different, okay? The way that they respond to adversity, their motivation level, their commitment level, it's D1 in all those things, right? So this guy has been an incredible piece to the organization. He's somebody that I rely on heavily from an offensive perspective, just because of what his background is and, where my weaknesses are. I'm a pitching guy, right? So it would break my heart for me to have to, teach our offense, swing mechanics and approach. I'm just not the right guy to do it. So I'm just absolutely thrilled to have Jake on board. And, I didn't mention he's a heck of a recruiter too, partner. Our other full-time assistant coach is named Zach Block. He has major league player development and video analysis experience with the Washington Nationals. He sent me and Jake a text yesterday with a picture of his championship ring and just rubbing it in. It gave me chills to be able to see that. But anyway, he's been in player development with the Reds organizations, the Nationals, like I mentioned, the Blue Jays, and also the Angels. So, again, in terms of, where our standards are, how we're evaluating talent from a recruiting perspective, and then once we get them in the door in the fall and in the spring, how we develop players, we're using programming and technology that they're using at the highest levels, right? And there's a reason for that, right? The business ball is the major leagues, and you have to model yourself, your organization, after those types of teams. So from an offensive perspective, like I mentioned, we give complete ownership to our offensive coaches. We talk about things from a team perspective, like quality at bats, knowing the situation, knowing the strike zone, and working to your strengths, right? Not trying to be somebody that you're not in the box, because you see it all the time, and you see it at showcases a lot, right? And maybe this is advice for kids, is that if you're a back singles guy, don't come up to the plate and try to hit home runs. You're going to roll over everything, and you're going to hit little pop-ups, okay? And I've seen it, time and time again. You have to have that confidence in who you are. And then you just got to execute, and you got to play, because more than likely you've been doing it for like 15, 16 years anyway, right? So if you have good at-bats, you're going to get on base, obviously. When we get guys on base, we got to move runners, okay? And we got to learn to, have a plate approach at the plate, have discipline, hunt fastballs, and, like I said, just go with your strengths and be who you are, and try to do damage at the plate. We're looking for guys that are doing damage, man. So from a pitching perspective, like I mentioned, that's my background. We talk about 3 things. We talk about development, we talk about execution, and we talk about preparation. From the mental game, you got to believe in yourself. You have to be a good teammate first and foremost, and you have to be able to stay focused and execute, okay? When we're on the mound, you have to attack the strike zone. You have to work ahead, and you have to go after hitters. We're old school in the fact that the foundation of our pitching is going to be the fastball. We have to move it in and out. If we're better than that, we're going to elevate it as well. And, after that, we look for starters, especially if you're a pitcher, you have to throw 3 pitches for a strike. So those are our standards from that perspective. When we start talking about defense, we have to start talking about, knowing where to go with the ball, okay, and knowing where to position yourself and having solid fundamentals from the toes up, okay, having good feet, having good posture, having good hips so you can make good angles and get to the ball, having good range, all these things, man on the field. And a pitcher can get confidence knowing that his guys have his back out there. So it's one of these things to where in baseball, everybody's kind of on their own little island out on the field or on the mound or at the plate, but we're all interconnected and we all do affect each other. So it's one of those neat parts about baseball.
You've mentioned that even though this is your first year, like, you're not going into it with that mentality. You know what you want from a player. So as far as a player's tool set, like, what do they need to showcase you to you guys in order to be considered a recruit or a scholarship-worthy player?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's probably something that, recruits are trying to find out all the time. And I can tell you that, our perspective is we look at where a guy's at right now and we try to evaluate honestly, is this guy a D3 guy? Is this guy a D2 guy? And then we try to think, under a year or 2 years of our programming, where's this guy going to be? Generally speaking, where we started from is that we looked at a lot of Division III level baseball players that had projectable bodies, but pretty good tools and were part of good programs. And we built basically the foundation of our team that way. I talked a little bit earlier about our November showcase. I got lucky in that showcase. Those 2 pitchers I was talking about, they profile right now as Division II pitchers, but they're a little bit different, okay? Number one, they want to play right away. They want to be main guys on the staff, and junior college was a good fit for them that way. And on the flip side, Division II wasn't good enough for them, okay? If you're 6'6" and you throw mid-80s, why not wait a year or 2 and see if you can get to 90 or low 90s? That makes you a Division I baseball pitcher, okay? And that's the sort of student experience that we're trying to offer kids, right? Because when you go to junior college, you're going there for a reason, and it's because you're ambitious, because you have aspirations, and because you think you can be better, and maybe you were overlooked and underestimated.
All right, Coach, what, beyond the physical now, looking at personality and character, does the 6th tool come into your decision-making process with recruits? And for those kids out there that don't know what the 6th tool is, maybe you can take some time to explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely look at character. We try to get to know our players as much as we can, right? So it comes down to, having relationships with coaches at the high school level, at the youth level, with club baseball, and, talking to umpires, talking to athletic directors. I mean, you try to talk to their friends, okay? It all matters. But listen, and I want to make this really clear, we're in the business of giving kids opportunities and second chances. I don't look at, if a kid has a significant character issue, I don't view him honestly much different than other kids. And to be honest with you, I've got character issues too. So maybe that's part of the reason why I'm at a junior college, to where I've actually got to get my stuff together and I've got to develop too to become a better leader. So, we're all kind of in the same boat. Like I said earlier, man, we're overlooked, okay, and we're underestimated. And sometimes that's due to character stuff that needs to be worked on. So, one of the toughest character traits that it's tough to teach, right? And honestly, you can't teach is work ethic. You talk to a kid and you can see that, maybe he's got an attitude, he's complained about a coach in the past, but, if you look at his body and you see the way he plays the game, okay, and if you look him in the eye, you can tell that he means business. He just most likely hasn't put in the right opportunity yet. So we try to mold our program around the personalities and strengths and weaknesses of our players and not the other way around. We're not looking for guys to buy into our program. Our guys are our program, if that makes sense. So, any given year, and this is another reason why I don't think we're unique, and I really don't consider this being a first year for us, is that any program, Ohio State, Arizona State, Akron, every year they're starting from scratch from a team perspective, okay? Whether it be roster changes, roster additions, okay, new coaches. But in terms of team chemistry and culture, that first day of practice, you're starting all over again, okay? And nothing is guaranteed in this game.
Coach, I was looking through some of your information last night, and you're the first program that I've seen mention this. I'm not saying that you're the only one that does it, but as far as your program, you mentioned that you try to give back. Your team gives back through public service. So can you go into a little bit of detail of what that looks like for a player?
Absolutely. We do. And making a positive impact on the community is way more important than baseball. Obviously, baseball for me and for our kids and our institution, baseball is essential to us. Okay. But at the same time, especially as a young person, you have to try to have some perspective. I can tell you that we are volunteering. We will volunteer, but I will never put it on Twitter. That's not why we're doing it. More people definitely have to do it. It's definitely something that we talk about with recruits on the visit. They know that the expectation is that they're going to be involved with the community and volunteer in whatever capacity that is. It's something that we're going to be doing, but it's going to be done on the down low. And, the focus is going to be on the players. And I'm big on actions being louder than words. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty details here, but, I would rather volunteer than go on Twitter and say I'm going to volunteer, you know what I mean, or tweet out pictures. It's just not who I am. And honestly, it's not the personality of our team or our coaching staff. Is that fair?
Bryant Stratton is a fairly well-known university, and it has branches across the country. So, fill us in a little bit on that history, but also what makes your college and campus unique to the student athletes.
Absolutely. So, it goes to further address one of the main concerns about our program as it stands now, the fact that, we are a new program at this location. Bryant Stratton overall has been nationwide for over 100 years. There are other locations that have baseball programs, that have launched baseball programs and been, incredibly successful. So I definitely recognize that in terms of branding and awareness, we're able to piggyback on that. Right, and just kind of add our name and our location to the list of being, in Solon, Ohio. I think in terms of proximity, our neighborhood, our city, it's second to none. Solon's incredibly safe. It's a wealthy area. It's got incredible schools. It has a strong business backbone from a tax perspective to where, the resources that are offered to the community are really, really high standard. And it just goes to show if you look at our field, right? I mean, I think that's a perfect example of it. In other sense, if you look at what Bryant Stratton offers nationwide, it's a premium, high quality private education. Okay. But at the same time, it's a junior college athletically. So it's something that's incredibly rare. Okay. You don't see that a lot at junior college level. A lot of kids go to JUCO to improve their grades, right? It's probably one of the top 5 reasons why you would do it. What we can provide is an ideal environment for folks that are looking to improve their grades and make progress that way. Free tutoring, mandatory study tables, small school environment, right? What I tell people is that it's easy to stand out here, okay? And that's why I'm such a proponent of small schools and junior colleges is that, everybody wants to be recognized for what they do. So, when you're making your decision of where to go, you pick a place that the door is wide open in terms of opportunity. So that's where we're at with all that.
Go into detail a little bit about the campus experience, the small school experience in the classroom as well.
Sure. So we're a small school, which is either good or bad for people. What I tell people that visit campus for in-person visits is that you can't take those buildings with you, okay? The tuition's probably a little bit higher at those campuses with fancy buildings. Bryant Stratton does it a little bit different, right? Like you said earlier, they're all over the place and they do it in a really, small school type of feel, right? And that's what their identity is to give folks individual attention, right? And to have, tremendous accessibility to teachers. I see it all the time when I'm walking around school. You see kids, walk down the hall and they knock on a teacher's office door and the teacher comes out to help them, okay? Our school is small enough, nobody can kind of hide from anybody, okay? So in terms of a culture and a community, if you're going to be seeing these people every day, you better believe that they're going to be nice to you, right? Because the alternative is not feasible. It doesn't make any sense. So these people are dedicated in terms of the campus. Baseball is new, obviously, right? But they're looking at us to establish a foundation from an academic perspective, a culture and a character perspective to where we're going to be incredibly professional, okay? And we're going to be smart about the decisions we make and about how we conduct ourselves like representing Bryant Stratton.
All right, Coach. So being located in Ohio, many of your recruits will probably come from within state. You mentioned that you are looking outside of state, but can you detail a little bit more of the process of how you find these players and where you're looking for them specifically?
Sure, that's a really good question. Like you said, and like I said earlier, it's really important to establish a foothold from a recruiting perspective in your state. And luckily, Ohio, I don't know if people realize it, is loaded with baseball talent. Okay, it's actually pretty darn good in basketball and football too. So I don't think we get a lot of recognition that maybe some of the bigger states get, but we look nationwide for talent. Okay, like I said, my worst fear is that we're going to overlook somebody and miss out on an opportunity for somebody with extreme potential, right? So about half of our roster is from Ohio. We have a lot from Florida for obvious reasons. They play year round, okay? That market is so saturated in baseball. There's not enough schools and baseball teams to satisfy the amount of prep level, travel level baseball players in that state, okay? So Division II level baseball players get overlooked. Or at, best case scenario, they're going to be on JV programs down in Florida just so they can say, that they stayed in the state. We've got guys from Illinois, which was a challenge, right? Because Illinois junior college baseball is serious. We've got a guy from Kentucky that we're really excited about. And, if you know anything about junior college baseball in Kentucky, there used to be one school. It was St. Catherine's. Now there's nothing from a junior college perspective in Kentucky. So I feel like it's wide open. We've got really good players from Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and even Maryland, which is, the first time I've had somebody from out there. And the person that's farthest away from our school is actually one of our pitchers from Colorado. So, you got to look everywhere for people. And with technology, the way stuff's heading, and, especially with COVID, it comes down to video, right? And it comes down to data. It comes down to scouting reports. It comes down to relationships that you have with people. So it's a little bit of everything, right? You try not to put all your eggs in one basket from a recruiting perspective.
All right, Coach, does Bryant and Stratton have on-campus housing? And if not, what is your plan for housing the baseball team?
We don't. And, it comes down to fit for guys, in my opinion. Being able to choose your own housing, being able to live off campus like an adult in an apartment or a house is a better situation than a Harry Potter dormitory is what I call it, right? With an RA. And, from a total cost perspective, if you include what meal plans and what housing usually costs at four-year schools, living in an apartment with roommates on your own and buying groceries, you end up saving a lot of money. And in some cases, it comes to thousands of dollars. For compliance reasons, our hands are completely off with housing. But, we've been very fortunate this season, especially. Our parents are incredible. They're together in a group chat. They're bonding already, and they're kind of working out stuff on their own. It's one less thing as a coach that you have to worry about, right?
So you mentioned earlier that Bryant Stratton has all 24 scholarships. So, talk a little bit about how that money is distributed, roster limits at the junior college level, and maybe explain a few other ways that recruits can think about saving money beyond athletic scholarships.
So we offer athletic scholarships, obviously, but also academic. And it's one of these things that Bryant Stratton does a really tremendous job of is, if you've done your due diligence in high school and you did a good job and got good grades, maybe had a high test score or something like that, we're going to reward you for that too. So what I tell folks is just be resourceful. There's a lot of stuff on the internet that you can find in terms of grants and scholarships and that sort of thing. And I think something that's with our institution is that we'll actually match those outside grants. So when you start talking about bottom line costs, total costs for going here, it can reduce it significantly.